No, I got super fired like everyone else. So, people
a newspaper ad.
I know, shut up. I'm old. I'm old, right? I'm old.
The town crier.
Yeah. This Bloomberg's
Yeah.
such a large organization that they're not used to idiots like me just rocking up on their front door, being like, can I have a job? Absolutely not. Every conversation should be learning, should be exploring. And you do not need an outcome on day one. For that job to be deleted, like one day it's a massive market, especially in...
Any views expressed in this podcast are ours and do not represent the views of Cadro or constitute financial advice. Listeners should not rely on any content of this podcast when making investment decisions and should seek professional advice.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode. such a prick. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Mergers podcast with me, your host, Rory Mason. With me as ever, the man who traded Froyo for funding rounds, Ken Thomas. How are we doing?
You went back, huh?
Yeah, I went way back.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Wasn't expecting that one, but good to be back.
We've done like 20 episodes. I've had to start digging up stuff from the past.
I didn't know you cared.
It's all here. The scene of the Merger Summer Party, for those of you who are here, we were with our friends, the Bottle Cocktail Shop in Islington. Our star in our reasonably priced car today, Tom Hughes. How are you doing?
Yeah, good, man. Good. Thanks for having me.
You've had a very interesting career. It spanned equity research, private equity, commercial sales, and now you're in AI and tech. Do you want to maybe give us a run through of how you got here and the story so far?
So, as you can tell from the accent, I'm not a Londoner. So I grew up in Dublin. Very non-traditional route into technology. So I'm actually showing my age now, but I started in finance pre-financial crisis, so pre-08. So
the root cause of the issue.
Yeah, I mean, some might say there's some correlation between me working in finance and the global financial collapse. So completely incredibly non-traditional route. It wasn't very common. I didn't have any finance people in my family. It all really came from my dad. He did a very unusual thing. He used to make me watch, and this is again showing my age, on BBC there used to be a thing called Ceefax. I don't know if anyone watched this. What? It was called Ceefax, and it basically was pre-internet. So I was just you'd go onto a page on the TV and you could watch the stock prices. So it was
the teletext.
Correct,
thing?
teletext. Yeah.
Oh, I used to love that.
Yeah. So he would make me watch that in the evenings. It was pre-internet. I mean, I don't even know if you were alive, Ken. But he'd make me go on and he'd get a piece of paper and he'd go, check out these stocks for me. Tell me what they opened at and tell me what they closed at. And I was like 8. And I had no idea what any of these companies did. I didn't know why he was doing this. But over a number of years, I started realizing there was patterns in this. And as an 8 or 9-year-old, knowing what GlaxoSmithKline's doing, knowing what Diageo's doing, it was something that I found fun. So it's almost like some people are very into sport, but for me, it was like tracking markets was really, really interesting for me. Very, very nerdy, but yeah.
No, I had similar thing. So dad's a farmer, but used to check it, I think, for futures and stuff. So you used to just love watching it's like black and white, but it'd like tick. And it's kind of like...
They'd tick?
Yeah. But it's kind of like early doom scrolling for kids. You just watch the tickers change.
Yeah, you'd have to wait. You'd be on like page 1 of 25 and you'd be like, wait for it to tick over to the next one. Yeah.
So you said for your dad, it made sense because of what he was doing and the farming side. But why did your dad make you check these prices daily?
So he used to do some retail investing himself, just on the side when he could. But because he was a vet, he was very into pharmaceuticals, very into the chemical companies. So he was tracking stuff he knew. So he was able to speak with relative authority on how drug trials were going, what was, and so he again knew his sector. So again, it was learning about, if you know a relatively useful amount of information, you've got practical applications, so you can see, okay, he could speak to other vets, he could speak to other doctors and go, okay, these drugs are doing well, these are not. So for him, it was almost like I wouldn't say, Reddit, but it was like he was finding out from other individuals in the space who knew their stuff, and then he was able to trade on that. So,
I love you say Reddit.
Yeah.
Pre-internet, pre-Reddit,
Pre-Reddit.
pre-everything.
How did you even trade stocks back then?
So this is the thing. So I still remember back in Dublin, there was a couple of big stockbroking firms, and later in my career, I was lucky enough to be able to spend a lot of time on those trading floors.
Yeah.
And pre-crisis, there was still individuals stamping each trade with a manual stamp machine, the time and date. So they do all the trades. At the end of the day, they'd go in and stamp all the trades to say that they were finished. So this is again before e-trading. So like a large amount of the market still did manual trade slips.
Hi, sorry to interrupt, but the Mergers podcast has been sponsored by Cadro, an FCA-regulated investment management firm. Cadro combines technology with traditional portfolio management to provide bespoke investment management services to high net worth clients. To learn more, head to www.cadro.com.
The reason they call it ticker tape or
Yeah.
you read the tape is because you would read the stamps or something.
Yeah, you'd see. So the exchange, you'd have an access directly to the exchange. Again, this is probably pre-Bloomberg as well. I was. This is not when I was not working there then. But you're just based on that question. Yeah, you had access to the exchange, so you'd see what was transacting on the exchange. I think for me, what was interesting, working in banking pre-crisis, because I was just working as an equity analyst, just writing research on single names like Elan and some other interesting Irish companies. We had no technology. Like I would have to read the newspapers. I'd have to call up people to see what happened last night in some other region, or when a drug trial was done, or there was no way to really look things up. It was only later on where you'd get access to newsletters and distributions like that by email. And then we would push that out. So we'd push it out to the brokers, to the rest of the banks. And I remember distinctly when things changed. And it was just before the crisis. And I think, again, this is probably a massive contributor to the crisis, was pre-crisis, there was very little access to good information. Like it was only what you knew, who you knew. After, what a lot of happening was people started checking the data. So going through analyzing what's in these investment vehicles, who's actually doing these trades, what's the marking to market correctly. So the information vacuum was insane. I saw it. And then very quickly after that, I saw how the entire trading process changed, how investing changed from access to information. The barrier to making a decision went way up. It wasn't just gut. It was, have you done your diligence? Show me the data, back it up.
Was that just because pre-08, 09, there was no, I guess, need for change? And then when you got this, collateral issue of who owns what, because what debts need to be paid, that you had to move electronic so they could actually audit where the money was, basically.
I think a huge amount of the change happened when going through the detritus, going through the crumbling banks, going through all of the data. I think the risk guys really did an amazing job, because their requirement to unpick where all its toxic assets were required people like Bloomberg, Reuters, and everyone else to really get in. And every bank is now a technology company. They're all driven on data. And same with, PE and VC to some extent have been catching up over the last 10 to 15 years, but for a long time they were operating on gut rather than on raw data. But absolutely, I think the crisis itself, fixing the issues afterwards, drove all of this innovation in technology and data and risk management, for sure.
Was that then part of your transition away from capital allocation roles, so fundamental research, into, I know at one point you're at Bloomberg.
Yeah.
Was that because you saw this change happening and you wanted to align with it? Or was there another reason?
No, I got super fired like everyone else. So no, I would love to sit here and go, yeah, I saw it coming. I jumped ship. I got out early. No, I was literally there in 08 when, people are walking around and the telephones are gone. You go into a room that used to be full of traders, and all of a sudden there's desks, no phones, just cables coming out of the floor. Yeah. And you're like, oh, my job's safe for a little while longer. And then very quickly you realize everyone's getting slowly fired.
And your phone's gone.
And I didn't even know my phone was at that time. But
you're in trouble when you're relegated to one monitor. And you're oh.
So what happened really at that point was you could see mass culling across all of the banks. So I was at Bank of Ireland and Ulster Bank. Ulster Bank is part of RBS. So everyone knows what happened to RBS, like absolutely annihilation. So and I mean, anyone in Ireland at that time, Ireland's a small country. The population of Dublin at that time was less than 1 million people, or approximately 1 million people. The finance community was tiny. You're talking like 5,000 people. So for, in institutional finance, not retail banking, for that job to be deleted, like one day it's a massive market, especially in Irish stock, in mortgages, in fact, CDS was huge in Ireland. We had huge AIG and huge players working from Ireland. For that to be wiped out in one day, it meant that there was 5,000 of my colleagues all looking for work. All of us only qualified to do one thing, finance, and that was not a job there. So I had almost a full year of going into cafes with my CV, going, can I have a job here? I remember once going to a chocolate shop going, like, surely I can work behind the counter here. And they're like, how much retail experience do you have? I went retail banking or retail what? And they're like, no, sorry, you've got no experience working in a shop. Sorry, so that was a year of searching before I managed to find a Bloomberg opportunity.
And I guess interestingly, it seems like we're going through a similar time like that in the tech space with AI right now. I guess how do you maybe it's a bit of a side conversation here, but how do you navigate that? There's a pride thing, there's the ego thing there, and resilience, and kind of going through that. And how do you navigate that?
I think the AI, I don't want to say revolution, but the restructuring of how organizations are going to work, I think you can work with it or you can work against it. And I think we're an incredibly, if you work in tech right now or in almost any sector, I think the main benefit we all have now is we can do our jobs a lot easier if we just tool ourselves correctly. It doesn't matter if your employer is providing the internal tools, it's finding the tools that are going to help you stand out and do your job more efficiently. I think there is a big, huge worry, like most people, of losing their jobs. I think from my more recent role, which I'm happy to talk about later, we've spoken to global organizations with hundreds of thousands of employees. And we've also worked with their consulting firms like Accenture and everyone else who are doing these large-scale AI transformation projects. I'm not hearing we're going to need to get rid of 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 employees. They're saying, how do we use the resources and the employees we currently have to compete? So there is a much more motivation for them to find out what to do, benchmarking of what are my current employees able to do, what are the tools I need to give them, put in their hands, and what are the organizational changes I need to make as a global business to compete in an AI world. So I think that's the question now more so than how many employees do I get rid of? Yeah. Or how do I optimize for lean? I think Klarna had an issue recently when they that's a whole other thing. They went so far to one extreme that they had to pull back.
Just to add to that, I was speaking to like a connection of mine really recently, and so he's a very senior partner at one of the big Magic Circle law firms. And I said to him, I was like, out of interest, how you feeling about AI, blah, blah, blah. And he was saying he thinks if they wanted to, over the medium, long term, they could get rid of just over half their workforce and run the business. But he was like, we would never do that, basically. It's like we've got a duty to the profession, we've got a duty to next generation, and all right, that'd probably maximize value for me as a senior partner, but it just completely pulls the ladder out and will, over the long term, destroy the profession. So it does, from the people I've spoken to at least, they have that mindset, like you say, of we could go, one of two ways with this, but we're going to choose to have it enable our workforce rather than just replace them all and then make ourselves obsolete in 50 years' time.
100%. I think it's too easy to say, and I think a lot of board level conversations, whether that be from PE sitting on your board or whether it be institutional investors, if they're saying how can you optimize for growth or how can you optimize for cost using AI, if that's the conversation that's happening, I think it needs to be a lot of pushback needs to happen, because it's we still don't know what the next set of tools are going to bring, what that's going to allow employees to do. You now have, I'll give you an example. Let's say you've got 100,000 employees, 20,000 of them are traditional administrative or, administrators, quote unquote. Previously, they were restricted by only what they were trained on. So their core competency, do this function, take these steps. Now, if you provide those same 20,000 individuals with AI tooling, whether that be ChatGPT, whether it be operational efficiency tools, whether it be product management, program management, any of these things, they are now 20,000 employees who can do 10 times more with less training.
Everyone becomes cross-functional.
Yeah.
I feel like we're always going back and forth, like generalist, specialist, time to use generalist, time to use specialist. What becomes everyone's edge if everyone's a generalist at that point?
I think you need to be expert at learning new tools. I think I don't think there's going to be one killer app. I think it's going to be a mosaic of different tools that all work together. Also, we're seeing huge churn. Like everyone's talking about Lovable today. That is an amazing business. In 2 years, there's going to be 5 Lovables. There's going to be lovable killers, right? You're going to have people who are like, okay, I couldn't write 2 pieces of code before, and now I'm an app developer. So I just don't think. I think the main thing people need to be able to do now is be dexterous with learning applications and working in this. I mean, anyone who's worked in finance before is used to having 10 screens open. You've got Slack over here, ChatGPT over here, Salesforce over here, your internal tool over here. That's not common for individuals working in a normal org. They've got 1 or 2 screens open. We need to get everyone comfortable with multitasking and living in almost like we do with our iPhones, where just getting comfortable with that.
And out of interest, just because you've obviously worked like across Europe and scaling teams across Europe, has there been any change yet to this? Put bluntly, that like we all know that there was like an outsourcing period where a lot of back mid-office roles went out to Manila or like India. Has the sort of rise of technology affected some of that offshoring?
Some of the big banks I know still are very much relying on their operations in India to do overnight analysis and data and number crunching and operations. That's still happening because I think there's various different legal requirements. There's onus on the process that they undertake, so they can't fully automate it. I don't know is the answer. I think a lot of large tech companies now are realizing that they don't need as much of those big operation centers. So I do think AI will challenge those, offshorings. I do think that's a low-hanging fruit in regards to.
Unless you build our AI.
Unless you're, was that your business model. And it's like, wow, it's so fast, and everyone's in the background. Just
I think it was like 75,000 contractors in India, and then you had Amazon Fresh, was like 1,000, which is
The Amazon one was funny,
but it wasn't as bad as Builder AI. I mean, like But
that's fake it till you make it, right?
That's
just
fraud. That was fraud.
But no, I think that's like an interesting like that there's been a real economic shift or boom that's come from this like offshoring, and it's like a starter way of wealth getting into certain economies, and then they sort of grow from there into more knowledge work. So it'll be interesting to see if that gets disrupted, trying to sort of tie it back to the original point.
And you kind of mentioned that period of trying to find a job very hard back home in Dublin.
Oh my God, yeah.
It'd be interesting to know what that was like for you, like mentally trying to get through that, but then also like that flowing into getting to London, because I guess when you came to London, that's when you came into tech as well.
Yeah,
right.
100%.
So like,
I mean, before I was literally, like I was saying earlier, like originally when I started in banking, we were using AS400, which is a DOS screen. It's literally black screen, green writing. You have to remember the prompts and codes. That's when I started in banking. And then when I left, everything was digitized. Every document was scanned. So that was only in the space of 5 years. To answer your question, what was that like for me emotionally? I mean, emotionally crushing. It was like spending
honesty.
But I mean, you go from thinking I'm here, I'm in finance, I've made it, I'm comfortable. I'm gonna, especially back then, a job in a bank was a job for life. You're gonna stay in that bank for 30 years. I was also deferring all my bonuses, a lot of my bonuses into stock. So Bank of Ireland stock and RBS stock were down 90% after the crisis. So I remember getting an email, it was an email or letter, I can't remember. Anyway, I remember getting a communication from the bank being like, FYI, we're discontinuing your pension scheme because the value has dropped below like $5,000. And I was like, I remember there being like 80 grand in there, or, because it's all stock, right? Yeah. So after that year of soul searching and going to chocolate shops asking could I work, and, but that was humbling because it was very much, I know what I know in one specific area. So And I think one thing that when I saw the change in technology in the bank, I think that combination of losing my job and seeing how quickly the world can change, I was determined to get a job in technology. But I didn't know much about tech, so I was like, okay, well, I know a lot about finance. Maybe I can work for a financial technology company. And that was fintech. I don't think people were calling Bloomberg and Reuters fintech companies back there. They were just data companies, data vendors. And I did something quite cheeky, but I applied to all of the big companies, FIS and SunGard and all these different firms. Got almost next to no replies because some guy from Ireland just applying, saying, I've been looking for work for a year, give me a job. And I saw actually in a newspaper ad that Bloomberg were hiring for people.
A newspaper ad.
I know, shut up. I'm old. I'm old, right? I'm old.
The town crier.
Yeah. This is 13 years ago, dude. This is a while ago, right? I saw, yeah, exactly. And it was saying, looking for financial market practitioners, people who've worked in the market, looking for a change, get into tech. I applied, heard nothing back. Applied again, heard nothing back. Called up the reception in Bloomberg. Was like, who's running this initiative? And they were like, oh, this guy. I won't say his name because it's a little embarrassing. So he then contacted me back going, Tom, I saw your CV. I don't need to see you. It's fine. And I don't know if it's because they got a million applications. I don't know what. But now the dangerous thing was I now had his name. I now definitely knew he worked in the London office. So I called up about a week later and I spoke to someone who was working on his team. And I said, hey, there's some interviews coming up for these jobs. I haven't gotten my confirmation yet. Can you tell me what date he's holding these interviews?
What a hero.
And they were like, on this date, at this time. And I was like, is there anything I need to bring? And they're like, yeah, prepare this, and this, and this. So I just booked a flight and just rocked up to Bloomberg headquarters with no actual proper invite. I knew his name and I knew that what the job role was. And I went in and I was like 5 or 6 other people sat on the couch, and then slowly we were all brought upstairs. And then I sat in front of this person who was doing the interview, and he was like, hold on a second, I recognized the name. Didn't I tell you that we weren't going to meet you? And I was like, look, I'm here already. What are you going to do? And he was, I think, you have
to respect that.
Bloomberg's such a large organization that they're not used to idiots like me just rocking up on their front door, being like, can I have a job? But I guess it was like the Irish in me just being like, well, if I can go into like cafes and get rejected, I might as well get rejected in London in Bloomberg. So I went in, and myself and this guy, and fair play to him, he gave me the chance. Once we got talking about what I've been doing in the banks and what my view on technology was and the exposure to the community I'd built, he was like, how much time do you have? And I was like, I've got all day. I mean, I've got nothing else to do. I had 5 interviews that day.
Wow.
And they said, can you hang on in London? And I said, yeah. And within a week, I had a job offer. And they put me up in a flat in Farringdon for a month. And I moved to London. And so that was it. I was employed at Bloomberg then for the next 6 years as like a senior guy in the commercial teams, helping them build product, distribute products across brokers, bankers, everything. And that was it. So
can I just say that is so like inspiring. But also, there are thousands of boomer parents everywhere turning to their sons, being like, if you would just turn up and shake the CEO's hand, I tell you every day.
Yeah,
but this is like taking
World of Warcraft.
This is taking it to the next level. It's like not even showing up, just be like going. They said no, just sneak in.
Yeah, I think I'd be arrested if I did it today. If I did it today, like this was like 2011, right? It's like 2010, 2011. I think then they were very hungry for people to come in. And I think, and again, like any tech sales role, it's completely true today. And I think you asked earlier, like, how do you stand out? How do you get ready for an AI world? Like that AI can't do that. Yeah. Okay, AI can't break into a company and force, like, you need to work with me, right? I know I can do this. AI is not going to do that. No amount of automated outbound is going to do that. And when I've been hiring sales teams in the past, and the sales teams I've built over the years, that's what I look for. I don't care what their background is. As long as they have a comprehension of how to sell, you can coach them. But it's that drive and that willingness to actually get out there in front of people, tell their story, and also listen to what the challenges of the customer are, and then match what you're offering with that. That to me is, if you can see that in a human, no AI can do that.
Obviously, you've kind of run a full gamut in terms of the tech life cycle in the past, I guess 13 years now, you said. Who, like, going from Bloomberg, Affinity, going from financial, like, data selling to now you're doing a CRM, to go into what you were before. What has it been like working through that cycle?
So that was the craziest thing. So again, I'll kind of keep it quick, but Bloomberg was like, everyone knows what Bloomberg is. It's big, it's blocky, it does what it does. It's a gorilla. It's a 100-pound gorilla. You can call up. There's no negotiation. Bloomberg don't negotiate contracts. It's like, it's renewing. You've missed your deadline. It's renewing for another 2 years. You're done, right? Give me 25 grand. They don't redline. They don't do anything. There's no negotiation. So coming from that and then I went to Gartner after that and ran a practice there focusing on tech DD. The crazy thing was when I went to Gartner and then to Affinity, I'll catch up on that. When I went to Gartner, my background was mainly public equities. Like, I'd done a little bit of the private capital stuff, but it was mainly public equities. I went in there, they were like, yeah, we'll hire you, but their only job is in private capital. So very quickly, I had to start advising on fintech acquisitions. And one of the biggest things I learned there very quickly was how different startups and privately funded organizations were than these large enterprise grade like Bloomberg, etc. So seeing the growth of things like Darktrace, I worked on the Bitdefender deal and a few others like that. And then, to your point, I got a real thirst for what's it like at the startup end? What's it like on the coal front? Like, product, you're creating a niche, or you're creating a category. And when the job at Affinity came up, it was, a leader in AI automation and data enrichment for CRMs. It was like the Salesforce killer. But that got me the ability to meet people like you, because working at Affinity, I built the team in Europe from me at a WeWork desk to 35 people, and we spent our entire time sitting with the VC community every single day. I think we worked with like 800 VCs. Wow. So that has been a complete mind shift change from large enterprise data to like scrappy startups and VCs, like two-man band VCs out there like cutting checks. Like, it's a completely different world.
Yeah. And what were you doing at the last one as well? Because you're also building out a team there as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, what I spend a lot of my time doing is working with earlier stage, traditionally American SaaS businesses and helping them scale in Europe or, reorg and optimize their go-to-market functions. But more recently, I was lucky enough to work with an amazing group who, the founder is an amazing guy. The company's called Workera. They came out of Stanford. So the founder's actually a lecturer at Stanford in neural networks. And then they partner with MIT. So imagine you're a technologist who has the backing of, someone who's leading the conversation on how AI is being used in society. And that's been fascinating. To your point earlier on, I've managed to have amazing conversations with some real global change managers, like the large consulting firms and large organizations who are actively looking right now, how do I optimize my workforce? And I've got 500,000 employees. What do I do? So that's a big question right now.
And you had mentioned, like, before we sat down, talking about, I guess people are quote unquote ready for AI from like the leader perspective, the worker perspective. They'll even score themselves very highly on these surveys you're talking about. But when you talk about like when the rubber actually hits the road, it's very different. It's a very different reality.
It's terrifying because we all have a lot of confirmation bias around a lot of things. Like even in the VC space, everyone believes we know what we know about our sectors, or we know what we know about a specific subsector or a specific market trend. If you ask the average employee, how good are you at your job? They're going to say, I'm really good. Like most of them, I'm the best. Like, and if you ask them about something nascent, or let's say you ask someone like who's used to using ChatGPT, how ready are you to use AI in your job? Mm-hmm. Their field of reference and how to relatively value that question is really low. Like, they don't know how to answer that. So they're going to answer, yeah, I'm totally good to go. I'm ready to rock. I can do all of this stuff. So organizations over the last 2 or 3 years thought what they were doing was correct, was they're surveying a lot of their teams. And they're asking these, imagine you're Coca-Cola, for example, and you've got a learning and development team or a HR team of probably no more than 500 people. Max. That's a really big one, by the way. Like most organizations have 20 people, 25 people working in learning and development and HR. Coca-Cola might have 1 million employees.
Yeah.
So how do you get these 500 people to assess 1 million people and judge to what extent in their individual roles they're ready for AI? And then if you do find out there's gaps and there's knowledge gaps or ability gaps, how do you roll out change?
Yeah.
So for example, like I know a couple of organizations and they surveyed their teams, like 20, 30, 40,000 individuals, said, well, to what extent are you an expert in AI? What do you know about AI? 70% of them came back in this example saying, I'm an expert in AI. I'm ready to go.
It was on their LinkedIn too.
I am Sam Altman.
And then, for example, you can use tools like a lot of organizations now, like massive ones are using things like Workera and others to do an agentic assessment. So what they'll do is that same small team will have deployed this agentic assessment that talks to the employees one-on-one at scale, like over 500,000 people, and go, okay, we're going to do some challenges. I'm not going to ask you to fill a survey in. I'm going to ask you some questions. How would you answer this? How would you talk to me about your understanding of AI and real practical applications? And then when the results come back, it's like, yeah, none of your teams know much about AI. Like, that's the scary thing where we're at now, is that we're starting to realize that
we don't know how to use
we've got a long way to go.
Well, I suppose people, like, you don't know what you don't know, right? So, and also, I don't know if everyone's like this, but one of my best workmates at Barclays was always, whenever he got the survey, like 10 out of 10 on everything, because they were like constantly restructuring when I was there, and he was like, I don't want to go, mate. She's like, how do you feel about work? 10 out of 10. Like, how do you feel your workload? I'm swamped. So,
I mean, who here has not clicked through a compliance exam? Like, just go through your training modules.
You speed run it because you know what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, sure. You're like, can I retake it if I fail it? Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah. And that is a real challenge right now. Like on the short end of the wedge, where a lot of us all work in the small, sub 250 employee, you can affect change. You can build, scale, and collapse a business all in a space of 1 or 2 years. But the global large enterprises, like, and this is to your point, people are worried about losing jobs. They're still in the assessment stage. They're still in like, what don't we know? They're not in the stage of let's cut staff tomorrow. They're still very much in like, they don't know where this is going to land.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's interesting. And then like I mentioned earlier, there's a company that kind of came out the gate, and like largely when you look at a lot of these early stage companies, you're seeing these crazy pops in revenue, and you're just like, my main concern usually is like the sustainability of these things, because we've seen some stuff where there's no trial period, but you can break it in 3 months, but the contract's for 12, so you're reporting 12 months of contracted revenue, but versus like it's a low ACV or average contract value, but the churn rate is crazy. With this one company, for instance, the guy literally just exited his fintech like 4 months ago. This company's been running for 9 months. And that 4 million contracted ARR, or average like annual recurring revenue. But the interesting about what the company does is that we talk about these SOPs, these scope of process, where they're just like there's no actioning. They're just giving you visibility, where the gaps are, where things are falling through, and who's not doing well. And that's like kind of the scary part, because I was really worried about like validation and actioning things, but just giving full visibility to leaders to really just kind of action what you were talking about before is. So
I say this to my untrained VC ears. This sounds like a rapidly scaling company that just monitors workers.
Yeah,
this sounds very dystopian, basically.
But
it just monitors and shows you who's doing shit.
It's terrifying. Yeah, but also the last part is like they're like, let's say there's a project with the CFO, but like he doesn't speak to the customer success team, but there's a crucial part of that process that sits with them, but like there's no communication there. This will highlight that and shows you what the value of that gap is as well.
Yeah.
Sorry to cut you off.
No, it's perfect. Okay, so if you don't think most organizations run a shit list, you're living in the dark. If you've worked in any sort of operational role, there's multiple shit lists. Like, that's how you run a business, because you're looking for where your business is falling down all the time. If you're not, like, there's a huge market. Like, in the sales teams I've run over the years, I don't think I could live. I mean, I used to live just living in Salesforce, building reports, looking for gaps, looking for what stuff is falling down. Now you've got things like Clari and all these amazing tools that are pointing out stuff that you can't see. You've got Gong, which I don't think any sales leader could live without now. Yeah. You know, when I've run sales teams and there's like 20, 30, 40 employees, I don't have time, and my sales leaders below me don't have time to sit in on every single one of their calls. So you don't know if your coaching or your training or even your product is hitting the mark. You don't know what the feedback is, and your employees are going to lie to you because they want to, like you said, if someone's saying, yeah, I hate my job, I'm still going to say, yeah, 10 out of 10, I love my job. So what we're seeing now with the AI technology and these software vendors, there's a huge amount of gold in these niches of just optimizing for operational visibility. Like, this is a huge Gong. I don't even know now. It's multiple billions. Like,
what's it do?
So Gong records every single call that your entire sales team makes. It digitizes it and analyzes it for keywords, for customer feedback, for amount of time, the gaps between how long was your salesperson talking, how long was the customer talking, did you do next steps, was there like concerns about pricing, product. So it effectively analyzes the entire call. A sales leader can then run a report and it'll show up. These are the positive calls, these are the negative calls. And now it's allowing you to do forecasting as well. So it's allowing you to go, okay, I'm overlaying my data from Gong with my Salesforce data. And my rep is saying this is a deal, it's like a $10 million deal. It's definitely closing next quarter. I can see he hasn't spoken to them in 6 weeks. The last time they spoke, they did not discuss pricing. Yeah. And this is what I think, again, coming back to it, when we're talking about like potential job losses, I would have needed 10 times more salespeople to do the same quality of work that a highly coached team with technology visibility on how they're operating. That allows me and sales leaders to have way more narrow but optimized sales teams. And I think that's going to allow software companies and any organization to actually deliver way more growth. But you can now hire loads more people. So I don't need everyone to be the world's greatest salesperson. I just need them to work within the parameters of what I can measure and coach them on. So that's actually, I'd hire more people because they're more, it's the return on investment is, it's less risk effectively. I don't need half my sales team to do 50% of quota. I can get the same sales team to do 80% of quota every time or more.
That's actually probably quite a good place to drill down on a bit, which is like, what then is really good networking and like sales etiquette or technique? Just because we like always asked, you know, we talk about networking a lot in VC and finance, but like what is good like hygiene when you're doing that?
I think, you know, I've had managers before who've told me like, you need to be a collector of people. So whether that be competitors, people in your space, people you want to sell to, people in specific industries, when you're going to events or you're out and about, is connecting with individuals, whether they be your peers or not, and then trying to understand how you can support them in future. Not today. Yeah. It could be like, for example, when you and I met, it was at a random event, I think it was Sifted or something years ago. Yeah. It's a random event. I had nothing to offer you and you had nothing to offer me, but I asked you what's interesting to you. Like, what can if I come across a startup, what's does good look like for you? And it means that in 6 months, if I bump into someone, I'm not only helping you out, but I'm helping a startup out. And you're collecting sort of favors. And I don't think I've ever asked you for anything yet. I think you're still in deficit to me, but, including going on this podcast. But I think at one point, you know, I could say, hey, I need help with this, or I need help with this. And I think the best thing my sales teams is always a case of is getting out there, talking to individuals in industry, whether they be super senior or not, figuring out what their problems are, and then saying, oh, I know a technology that could help you with this. Like today, we spoke about multiple different software tools. I don't sell any of them. like any of those tools. But I'm happy to support other people in sharing my knowledge. And I think that's, if you're in SaaS sales or in VC, we have multiple touch points and opportunities to actually help each other out. And that does yield commercial benefit to you in future. It always does. And I've been doing this for over 20 years, and I'm still able to pull on my network when I need something done. And that can be a huge deal. That could be like close a massive deal because the CIO is someone I spoke to 5 years ago. I think that's really important is maintain your network, find out how you can help your network, and don't think what's in it for me. Think what I can do to support someone else, because eventually they'll be an amazing resource for you in future.
Which is one of the biggest themes of this podcast.
There you go.
Don't be transactional and don't be a dick.
Yeah. You can be a dick sometimes, but just don't be transactional.
Tastefully.
Yeah.
Okay, and then I guess the inverse of that, which is like, what are those common mistakes you see when networking?
The most common is being, like Ken said, only transactional. It's what's in it for me? What's in it for me? Can I make a deal now, today? I think short-termism and that sort of very narrow field of vision, absolutely not. Every conversation should be learning, should be exploring. And you do not need an outcome on day one. It's how can this work? How can we work together further down the line? That's the number one thing you can always focus on.
And you can feel that too when someone's like really just trying to get something out of it, like today.
Yeah. Also, it's the why. Like, it's always the why. It's like, why am I talking to you? Like, but it's like, we all spend our lives at these events, running around these countries, flying in, get to the hotel, go to the event, speak to some random people. And you can feel it. You can feel it when someone's just there to sell you something, or they've got an ask. They're coming to you with an ask. And you and I, when we're at events, we run from those people. Like, genuinely, you're like, I'm going to find a group of people I've never seen before. I don't know who they are. And I'm just going to like potluck it. I'm just going to go in, start chatting. They could be the head of the UN. You don't know. They could be running a biggest fund in the world. You don't know. But if you go in there and you ask them, oh, hey, I'm Tom, nice to meet you. Yeah. And the look on their face when you're not asking for anything in return, they're the guy, that's the person you're going to be with in the bar until 2 o'clock in the morning, and your best friend then for years.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's funny. The transactional folk, when you get the vibe, you're just like, I gotta have a full drink in my hand. I'm like, I just need to get another drink. I'll be back. You just walk away.
Yeah.
You know.
I think that's pretty much us for today. But thank you so much for coming on. Yeah, I really appreciate it. I think the listeners will get a lot of value.
Been a joy. Thanks, guys.
That's all for today, but please fuck off, Gaz. Everyone drop a fuck Gaz in the comments. That's all from us. Oh my God. Every time, there's always a point it breaks. That's all. What am I trying to say? That's all from us.
That's all, folks.
That's all from us today. Thank you so much for listening. Please like and subscribe. And if you haven't seen any past episodes, Gaz will drop them below. Thanks.
Or you should do that but point here, because then you could put actually physically point to the corner.
I went for a.
He went down.
Oh, you meant the description. You
down.
said description. Okay, fair enough. But it's not gonna be in the description. It's gonna be on.
No, but I went. Is it?
No, I'm just gonna keep this in it, and then they'll figure out.
That's fine. Yeah. That's perfect. Yeah.